started with a warehouse, a cold November morning, 6 men, a dodgy key, and a plan so stupidly simple it actually worked. They thought they were there nicking a few million in cash. What they found instead changed British crime forever. Unit 7, Heathrow International Trading Stay, Brink's map, a high security depot used by banks to store foreign exchange and gold shipments. The kind of place nobody ever looked twice at. Grey walls, flickering lights, guards drinking tea at 6 AM. Inside that vault sat 6,800 bars of pure gold bullion, about 3 tons worth, but nobody outside a handful of people even knew it was there. On the morning of the 26th of November 1983, 6 armed men walked in, calm as you like. No chaos, no drama, just quiet confidence. They weren't guessing. Someone had told them exactly what was inside, who was working, and how to get in. And that's where our story really starts, because no great robbery works without one thing, an inside man. Every great robbery needs one thing you can't buy at a hardware store, someone on the inside. Now meet Anthony Black, a Brink's security guard who lived with the sister of one of the gang. He didn't storm the vault with a balaclava, he handed them the blueprint. He made key impressions, passed on routines, and quietly pointed the robbers to Unit 7. The team that walked through that door were not amateurs. You had Brian Robinson, he organised the job, and Mickey McAvoy was one of the gang who later to be convicted. They went in thinking they were nicking a few millions in Spanish pesetas, and they found the gold. The security crew were overwhelmed, threatened and told to be quiet. This wasn't a smash and grab, it was careful and fed by inside knowledge. Who worked which shift, where the valuables were left overnight, and how the vault doors behave. That inside hand turned a routine burglary into the biggest bullion theft Britain had ever seen. Next, how 6 men calmly walked into that vault and walked out with 3 tons of gold. It's almost unbelievable until you hear how precise the operation was. It was 6 AM on a cold Saturday morning when 6 men walked through a side door at Heathrow and straight into the British criminal history. November 26, 1983, the Brink's warehouse looked half asleep. Security guards on a shift, kettle boiling, lights buzzing. Then the gang arrived. Balaclavas up, guns out, voices calm. They tied up the guards, one of them pouring petrol over the cactus and saying, "Tell us the alarm code or you're burning." They came expecting a few million in cash. What they found behind those vault doors stopped them cold. Pallets stacked high with gold bullion, 6,800 bars of it, 3 tons. Street value back then around 26 million. That's $500 million in today's money. The gold had only been delivered the day before. Pure luck. And thanks to that inside info, the robbers loaded van after van, sweating through their masks, shifting over 3 tons of metal in just over 2 hours. They left the guards tired, taped and terrified. No shots fired, no alarms tripped, just the smell of petrol and adrenaline. And here's the crazy bit. Nobody outside those warehouse walls knew a thing. While Heathrow woke up another Saturday, 6 men were driving away with Britain's biggest ever haul and not a single police car in sight. They walked out with 3 tons of gold and then vanished. No sirens, no chase, no trace, just ghost in London fog. The gang loaded up the gold into a van, wrapped in canvas and dust sheets, and drove off into West London traffic like it was any other Saturday morning. No one stopped them, no roadblocks. Heathrow security didn't even realise what had happened until hours later. They took the loot to a lockup in South London, a place run by an associate named Kenneth Noye, a clever operator with a taste for chemistry and cash. Noye's job was to do the unthinkable, make 3 tons of traceable bullion disappear. He melted the bars down, mixed them with copper to change the chemical signature and recast them into new bars. Then he funneled the gold back into the market through legitimate dealers and banks. The police called it the alchemy of criminals. Within weeks, Brink's Mac gold was being used to buy property, cars, and even fun nightclubs. The perfect crime had entered the real economy. But the thing about easy money is, it never stays quiet for long. As the gold spread, so did the greed. And greed always leaves a trail. They didn't just steal gold, they built an underground economy. And that's what made Brink's Mac more dangerous than any gun. With Kenneth Noye running the smelting, the gang had a new problem. How do you move millions of pounds worth of hot metal? You can't walk into a bank with gold dust on your hands and a van full of bullion. So they did what smart criminals do. They went legit. Enter Brian Perry, a jeweller and a dealer who helped shift the first melted bars. He worked with a crooked solicitor named Michael Relton, and together they created a network of fake companies, bogus invoice and property investments. The gold was melted, sold, resold and laundered through houses, nightclubs, even racehorses. The system was so loose back then, you could stroll into a bank with 200 grand of cash and open an account, no questions asked. By the time investigators started piecing things together, the gold had already travelled through hundreds of hands. Some experts reckon that as much as half of all the bullion was successfully laundered back into circulation. Ordinary bars, indistinguishable from the real stuff. And when that much money moves around, people start fighting over it. The gold might have been melted, but the greed was about to ignite. When there's 26 million in stolen gold floating around, trust doesn't last long. And in the Brink's Mac world, loose lips didn't just sink ships, they got people buried. Once the bars were melted and the money started moving, everyone wanted their cut. But the more people involved, the more mouths to feed, and the more heat from the cops. Police were already sniffing around. The first break came when they found gold smelting equipment at Kenneth Noye's country house in Kent. An undercover officer, DC John Fordham, was stabbed to death there during surveillance. Noye claimed self-defense and beat the murder charge. Meanwhile, Brian Robinson and Mickey McAvoy, two of the original gunmen, were arrested and eventually sentenced to 25 years. But here's the thing, most of that gold was never recovered, and as it moved through the underworld, people started turning up dead. Brian Perry, George Francis and John Palmer, all linked to the laundering chain, were murdered years later. By the mid-2000s, over a dozen killings were believed to have some connection to the Brink's Mac fortune. The robbery had stopped being a robbery, it had become a curse. Anyone who touched that gold seemed to pay for it, one way or another. And while the bodies piled up, the system itself was changing. Brink's Mac didn't just expose greed, it exposed how easy it was to clean dirty money. And that's where our next chapter begins. The gold was gone, but the fallout had only just started. Brink's Mac didn't just make criminals rich, it changed how Britain handles money forever. By the mid-80s, investigators realised the robbery had exposed a monster hiding in plain sight. The ease of moving dirty cash. Now, before Brink's Mac, there was no real money laundering laws. You could just walk into a London bank with a suitcase of cash and open an account. No ID, no questions, no record. The crooks didn't just steal gold, they showed everyone how broken the system was. As the stolen bullion was traded, melted and sold through property and business fronts, police watched fortunes appear from nowhere. And there was nothing illegal about it. The result, Parliament started tightening the net. New laws came in, the Drug Trafficking Offensive Act 1986, the Criminal Justice Act 1993, and later the Proceeds of Crime Act 2002. Those acts created the idea of money laundering as we know it. requiring banks to report suspicious transactions, check identity and prove where the money came from. In short, Brink's map forced Britain to invest modern financial policies. 40 years later, the fingerprints of that gold are still everywhere, in vaults, in property deeds, maybe even in someone's wedding ring. But what it really has left behind was a warning about greed, power and trust. 40 years later, the Brink's Mac gold is still out there, melted, moved, reborn. But the real story isn't where the gold went, it's what it left behind. The robbery changed Britain in ways the gang never imagined. It birthed new laws, reshaped banks and rewired how we think about money itself. It showed the world how greed hides behind respectability, how a stolen bar can be reborn as a luxury flat, a business or wedding ring. Most of that gold is still missing. Some say it's still sitting in vaults, others think it's been remelted so many times it's part of the economy forever. Either way, it proved one thing. You can melt gold, you can change its form, but its value never dies. And that's what makes gold powerful and dangerous. For honest jewelers like us, it's a reminder, traceability, integrity, transparency, they're not just buzzwords, that's what separates craftsmen from criminals. If you watch this so far, you know how one robbery reshaped the entire industry and why real gold still matters today. If you want to understand how to protect your own wealth and buy with confidence, grab my free gold investment guide. I'm James at Blackwall Jewelers. Thanks for watching.